I don't want to take up too much time because I want to really get into the conversation as quickly as we can. I know we have a pretty tight, we have a full schedule, but just want to say for those of you who are not familiar with us, we are an events and memberships-based organization whose purpose is to serve as that neutral platform in the international development space. So really giving all of you the opportunity to talk about all issues in international development, give you a chance to network, particularly during these times when it's hard to do so. So we really want to provide those outlets and opportunities. So this is our bread and butter event. We do these types of events all the time. So check out our website. That's where all the updated information is about any upcoming event. We only have one posted. That's tomorrow for now, but we will have many more for November, December, and then through obviously into next year. So you can check that out. And with that, I don't want to take up more time, so I'll pass it off to Matthew, who's the co-chair of the Youth and Development Workgroup, to get us started today.
Great, thank you, Paul, and welcome everyone. I'll be brief as well so we can get to the discussion. As Paul said, welcome on behalf of two work groups at SID, Youth and Development, which I co-chair, Matthew Bremen, with Christy Olenek from Making Sense International, and the Ag and Food Security Working Group, which is co-chaired by Mark Castellino from Opportunity International and Sabrina Ambergui from ACDI-VOCA. We put on a couple events a year on these topical issues of interest to our membership, and this was certainly one, and please reach out to us for ideas and for future sessions. Youth Inclusive Market Systems was raised as a topic during one of our planning sessions, the Youth and Development Planning Session. And so it gave us an opportunity to engage with Mark and Sabrina and the Ag and Food Security Group to think through ways we could put something together. So excited about this event. The inclusivity equity piece is a really important topic, as we all know. So we're pleased to be able to host this discussion today. We are attempting to elevate youth and specifically young women's voices, as you'll hear from our panelists today. Agriculture-related industry represents nearly half of all economic activity in sub-Saharan Africa, which is the region where our panelists are from. So we have a great lineup here. And to get us started, I want to turn it over to Joyce Mushena, who's our gender lead at MasterCard Foundation, who's going to co-moderate along with Christina Manfrey from, she's a global gender director at TechnoServe. So they'll provide an overview and how we'll engage and hear from our fantastic dynamic panelists over the next 90 minutes. So I'll pass it over to Joyce. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Matthew, for the introduction. Good day, everyone, and very pleased to have you. As Matthew has indicated, we do have a fantastic group of panelists, young women from sub-Saharan Africa, who will be speaking to us about a topic that they are not only passionate about, but they have done quite a great piece of work to gain experience to share with us today. Maria, Sandra, and Awa are with us on the call, and Queen couldn't make it. She will be joining us on a short recorded video that will be played at the right time. Christina and I have the happy job of letting these women speak to us and really share their experience. And so it's a free kind of conversation that they'll be carrying out around three main thematic areas. The first one being their journey so far into agriculture. And the second topic will be around challenges, constraints, and how they have been able to overcome them. And we close with a conversation around what they would like other young women to hear and what they would actually say to policy makers and stakeholders in the field of agriculture and young women's leadership in that sector. So without much ado, I would like to basically invite everyone to share their comments, their questions on the chat, but we will also spend a couple of minutes towards the end with the panelists responding to any questions from the floor. So please keep the chat active, and I will now call upon the panelists in this order, Maria, Sandra, and Awa, to take us through their self-introduction and really get us into a little bit of their lives. How did they get where they are? Is it agriculture that chose you, or did you choose agriculture? And how have you grown as a leader in this sector? And how do you see yourself, growing your career in agriculture, and essentially looking at various elements, and I think the selection of the panel really took into account, actual farming or production, to research, to financing. And so we're really looking forward to this interactive session. And as I mentioned, Christina and I will be also keeping the time. So welcome, Maria.
Hello, everyone. My name is Agia Maureen Maria. I'm currently in Costa Rica. I'm almost finishing my degree in agricultural science and natural resource management. I am also a business owner. I am business owner. I set up an agribusiness that is working with farmers to move produce from rural areas to urban centers, and using an online system to make these products available to consumers. And my journey in agriculture is not like the journeys that you hear of, oh, I'm very passionate, or I loved agriculture. Well, I did not love agriculture. If anything, I hated agriculture growing up. But I would say this has a lot to do with the kind of environment I grew up in, and how, to me, agriculture was just this thing that people that have failed to do anything else do, or people that did not get a chance to go to school. And that is the mindset, trust me, that most young girls that have gone through or find themselves in rural settings have. And I grew up just wanting to run away from that. I grew up just wanting to live that kind of life. I mean, I think if you ask any young girl, 12 years or so, if they love waking up at 3 a.m. to go to the garden to make ends meet, I don't think the answer would be yes. For me, it was just, oh, I'm suffering. Oh, this is hard. But as I grew, even as I started my degree, I first did a degree in biochemistry, and then agriculture chose me. I got a chance to participate in a youth think tank, and we're doing research about agriculture technologies and young people in agriculture. And that's when I discovered my passion in agriculture, and I decided to leave the degree and risk it on agriculture, and here I am. And I would say so far, my journey has got a lot to do with leadership, because I had to grow as a leader for me to discover that there's something I could do about what was happening. I would ask myself why I would see so many farmers in rural areas work so hard and yet not get what they deserve from their harvest, or be exploited. And so this kind of motivation brought out a kind of leadership role in me. And I always said, I have to do something, I want to do something. At first I thought I had to get another profession and probably keep my family money, but there's only so much I could give, until I decided that I could take a career in agriculture. I could start a business in agriculture. I could start teaching young women and talking to them about the opportunities, the off-farm opportunities in agriculture. And this has been a very, I would say, important learning experience for me as a young woman. And if we talk about how my gender or my race has shaped, I wouldn't say based on my gender this has been easy. If you know the cultural constraints for young women to break through in big roles or to define what they want, as we shall talk about later in barriers, it's like very hard. there are so many barriers to break. And I'm proud to sit here and tell you that I know that young women all over Africa are really right now trying to break those barriers and come to the forefront. But it has not been very easy. I mean, I tell my father, I'm going to leave my degree in biochemistry and studying agriculture. And he looks at me, and every parent's dream is like, I want her to be a doctor or to do something in science, because my father didn't go to school. So it's like, that's the ultimate success. So why would you leave that, you know? And I had to break through all this and talk to my big brothers and explain to them and tell them, look, I really want this. This is what I want to do. And no one understood, but hopefully now they start getting why I wanted to do this, because they realize that I'm a bigger person doing this. I'm a better person. I'm growing as a leader. And I think I should stop here and let my colleagues also talk about their journey.
Great, thank you, Maria. We will now hear from Sandra. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for the moderators. My name is Sandra Namlondo Tumwebazi. I have 3 quite long names. I'm currently working with Opportunity Bank as a branch supervisor. It's one of our country branches, up-country branches. Those are not, of course, within the city, but that is where I am to pursue my duties as a branch supervisor. And to get to the question that was asked, I could briefly give my background and it will probably explain my journey through childhood to the professional levels and currently where I am as far as agriculture is concerned. I grew up in a rural setting in a small nuclear family with a single parent, that was my mother. She could hardly make it to provide for us in school with the basic requirements that we needed, because she was a peasant, if I may use the statement. She did lead of agriculture production, which currently, because I now know what agriculture is like, as subsistence farming at that level, to earn a living. The little that she planted for food, for the home consumption, is the little that she again had to sell on to keep us in school. I did not like that, of course, and it explains my response to the fact that agriculture did not choose me. Having to go through the rudimentary methods of farming, not because it's what we wanted best at that time, and for me it's because I did not know much. I was not much exposed to the modern modes of farming, so I really thought agriculture was that dirty job one could do, that hectic, rough, tiring job. Living, I must say I did not like it. Like my colleague Maria said, the hard of having to wake up to go in the garden with a backhoe, you know, that rudimentary kind of farming was a nightmare for me. It was a practice that we did now and then, and as young children, moreover girls, it was a shaming, and it wasn't pleasant whatsoever. There was no better way it would be presented for us to like. The yield would be also very little, that it would earn my mom quite little, and I really didn't see the relevancy of having to stay in the garden to dig, you know. I grew finally anyway. I managed to pursue my career, and here I am working with. How I even get here, my school background is completely away from agriculture. I did accounting and finance. I did a business course that was business management and specialized in accounting and finance in one of the universities here in Uganda. And I did not have any lines of agriculture. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, but my passion and skill in marketing stroke sales is what drew me closer, is what really drew me closer to the field of the sector of agriculture. I had passion in mobilization. That is something I can do very well. So I come to the bank and I have three options to choose from: an agriculture related a role, or any other that involved other business that was away from agriculture. The side of me, I am that person who believes in everything. I believe even what they think is hard can work out. So while please don't take on agriculture, do not take on an agriculture role. It involves having to be very well informed. It involves having to be, well equipped in knowledge, so that will give you hard time. But I said, no, I can give it a try. After all, it has an element of selling. So I gave it a try and began doing sales for agriculture mechanization. Those were John Deere tractors that I was presenting to the farmers across the country for especially the financing solutions. So that's how I got involved in agriculture. I did not like it very much, but my passion grew along the lines of skills and passions of marketing. Along the way, I must say, I picked interest. I loved it and had to grow my career along those lines until now that I'm in an upcountry branch that whose portfolio is 80% an agriculture portfolio, and it's the portfolio that I'm managing. So I must say I like what I'm doing currently, because I got along the way with agriculture, not because I chose it. The role that I do, I'm really responsible for having to reach out to farmers out there. I have passion for the women because myself, I'm a woman and I'm inspired by fellow women. So I feel they must opportunities, they must reach out to the opportunities that are availed. So my day-to-day role is reaching out to farmers out there to sell the financial solutions to them and find their lives transform, especially in the rural areas, to have them have a better livelihood. It's what I do every day. And the credit lines, if anyone has been in banking before, you know that to finance a client or a farmer or any other person, it's a lot that you go through: the appraisals, the monitoring, and this exposes you to the different women in the communities. You get to understand them more than before. In fact, you get to understand agriculture much better before you do the financing. That's how I got into agriculture, but I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much, Sandra. That's really, I mean, it's so touching, but it's also real. You start off by not liking it, and then you end up falling in love with it. Awa, please.
Thank you, Joyce, and thank you, Maria and Sandra, for sharing your stories. And as for me, I did not grow up in a rural setting. I grew up in Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. So I grew up in the capital city, but I was exposed to farming early on by spending summer vacations in the village. And after high school, I was fortunate to get a scholarship to study in Canada. And during that time, I took a gap year to volunteer in India in a small village, helping them with the income generating activities. And it's during that time that I realized that the desire to help wasn't really enough, but I also needed the knowledge and the technical skills. So I went on to do my undergraduate degree in a small liberal art college in the US. And after that, again, I was fortunate to work for 2 years at the World Bank Group. And during that time, I realized that I was more interested in projects in agriculture, more so than infrastructure or urban and water. And at the same time, I was still in touch with my relatives at home, and some of them who were and are involved in agriculture will share with me stories of failing crops or the challenges accessing finance to buy agricultural technologies like irrigation pumps. So all of these reinforced and motivated me to look into going into an agricultural economic degree for my master's. And that's how I ended up at Michigan State University. And when I was there, I was fortunate enough to work on a number of projects looking at farming practices on the farm, but also along the value chain. And that's also when I realized that when we usually talk about agriculture, we tend to focus on what happens at the farm level, but what happens along the value chain is also important. And during that time, I was also fortunate to learn more about the continent, and I traveled to Niger and Nigeria for field work. And I have to say that very early on, I was influenced by the path and the track record of other successful women in agriculture or other fields. And one of them is Eleni Gebremadian, like the Ethiopian economist who was the driving force behind the establishment of the Ethiopia Commodity Stock Exchange. Like I remember looking her up, trying to learn more about her story, reading her paper, because I was very curious to understand like how she went from being an academic to being an implementer who had such an important contribution. And another female leader I look up to is Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the newly appointed director of the WTO, because she's worked both in government, in international organizations, and she also comes from an academic career, but she's also been able to use that to make actual policy changes on the continent and also in the larger field of international development. So when I think of mentorship, I think about these women who are both trailblazers in their field, but also inspiring younger generations like me to be the better versions of ourselves in whatever it is that we are doing. And it is that aspect of mentorship that I think is key for those interested in pursuing a career in agricultural research, and realizing very early on that you need a mentor to walk you through the process and also remind you why you are in that career in the first place. And personally, I also try to play my part by being available to answer questions whenever I can, when other people reach out to me. And at Michigan State University, I was also able to deliver trainings to help others strengthen their econometric skills and analysis skills. So I'm going to stop here, and we'll keep talking more.
Thank you very much, Awa. We have a little bit of reflection time, which you could do with. And I think, Awa, you've just led us to the direction of the role of leadership and I think role modeling. I would invite Maria and Sandra if you have any reflections around that point as well. How has leadership catalyzed or can catalyze greater involvement of young women in this sector?
Can I go first?
Sandra, go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, leadership, I may say, has done a great role in catalyzing agriculture and the involvement of women. We, with our passion, I might say, it gives direction. I mean, when every time you have the people that have been there, that are doing the things that you're passionate about, but you're finding difficulties. It is an inspiration from those that have been in the field that are doing it well to give us an example of the way to go. And with us also in the leadership positions, I still believe we are elements of the ladies out there, those whose mindset was hard that agriculture is tough, agriculture is a no-go area, agriculture is such a funny business that one could not get involved in. We in our leadership positions, me in particular, it is an arm of hope and courage to the women out there. And I feel this is helping them get out of the curtains to pursue it and find life out of agriculture. Thank you.
Sandra?
I also want to add that, you know, leadership is inevitable when it comes to this. We live in a society where for managerial positions or big positions in agriculture, or simply the act of a woman owning their own land or so, it's not very common. You know, it's something that's becoming common now. And leadership is what is going to push women to the forefront. That's its role. But we get women leaders that are able to pave way for other young women to get into this world, that are able to break the cycle of, you know, women cannot do this, or women cannot own land, which is like a common thing in Africa for most cases. That is changing, obviously, in this time. But when we have women at the forefront, when we have them as leaders, we make them role models. As you've heard from there were women that she looked up to that inspired her career. So when we have more of those in place, it means we are inspiring young women to come to the forefront and break barriers in agriculture, and to come and do what people thought was not able to be done by women, or what people thought was a male role in agriculture.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maria, for your reflections. And I think when you speak about leadership and how critical it is in not only catalyzing the presence of young women in a sector as critical as agriculture, but also in helping remove barriers and resolve challenges. I think this is a great place for us to sequel into the second theme.
Colleague, but there are ways to navigate this, right? It might just mean that you find a trusting colleague, male colleague you can work with, and who can also help make the necessary introduction to the community to establish the relationship before you could go on with the goal of your research and the why you first came into the community. So I'll stop here and let Sandra talk next. Thank you.
Great, yeah, Sandra, go ahead.
Thank you, Awa. I like how she proposes that I go next. Fine. My submission is also not far from ours. As I carry on my career in the banking sector, the agriculture sector, I may say, has quite a lot of challenges as compared to any other. Of course, there's the one challenge that Awa has just talked about, the peculiarity of the areas of operations of agriculture, and the people, of course, having to execute my duties. I don't have to sit in office. I have to go out to the field to look out for prospects that will take on my products, to appraise them, because the credit cycle requires that we do a good appraisal before you can lend out money. So all that we have gone through it, and it exposes you to distant and rural areas. You will not find farmer in the middle of the town. The typical producing farmers that I look out to finance really are quite far in the rural areas. So the peculiarity of such areas and the distance that is involved, the sparse populations of the people in the rural areas is quite challenging. You leave the urban centers to go deep in the villages to source them out, and it's quite scary, especially for the ladies. However, I feel some of those challenges have been capped. I really appreciate my institution, Opportunity Bank, for their endeavor to uphold, to embrace technology and technology-led solutions, and having to increase the branch network is one of the solutions to such barriers. So, like I mentioned earlier, that I'm located in a rural network of the bank, it is easier to access a customer or a woman farmer when you're closer to them than having to run from the urban centers to look out to them. And technology has also done a good job here. It's farmers and women farmers are a call away. You can just give them a call, find them and work on them. The digital products that the bank has put up for farmers are also another solution to curb that challenge. We can conclude transactions using phones. It makes work quite easy, though you may not completely have to go away from the movements to up country in the rural areas to meet the ladies. The other challenge that I've come also related to institutions is the less priority that is given to agriculture. Every institution, organizations, they have all given less priority to agriculture, not because it is the norm, but ideally the nature and setting of agriculture, its risky nature is what distances institutions from giving it priority. So you can hardly make it through. You can hardly hit your target. You're having competitions in the same cycle, in the same environment, but yours is quite a risk that not everyone else will take up. So, sorry, I'm taking it quite long, but to maneuver through the professional careers, especially in the financing institutions, it is numbers. The more you reach out, the more you recruit, the more you grow the portfolio. That is how your leadership and influential strengths can be realized. So it becomes hard to compete in an environment where there are so many other sectors that are a low risk, that are low risk areas, and anyone else would happily work within them than agriculture. So the competition becomes a bit stiff there. But I'm also happy with my institution, Opportunity Bank. They try to give priority to agriculture, and they try to bring in partners or stakeholders with exceptional funds and guarantees to make it easy to lend out monies to the women out there that need it. The specific arrangements and programs for women are enabled because of the fundings and the guarantees that are given out to help the bank lend. I may stop it at that. So Maria can go next. Thank you.
Well, talking about barriers, for me, I'll talk about barriers personally, but I'll also go into the context of what I found out through the research we did with young people, especially opinions from young women, so that you can also have an idea of what that looks like. Personally, as I mentioned, some of my barriers were my cultural build-up or my family members or the authority that they had over me. But then I'm also going to talk about barriers navigating agribusiness. As a young woman, I have had so many of those. We are currently in a a phase where we are looking for investors to invest in our company. And as young women who started an agri company, I have had talks with people that ask me, are you sure this is your company? Are you sure? And I'm wondering, why are they second guessing? Because I don't think that same question would be given to a young man who has started a company. If nothing, they would be very proud, you know. And if it was any young woman, that would threaten their self-esteem. And I mean, I'm not easily threatened, so of course I wasn't. But if it was for any young woman out there that is trying to come out and they are made to second guess their choices or questioned about their dreams or what they want to achieve, that is a very big barrier, because I don't think this applies to the males who are out there trying to do the same thing. And as I said, of course, getting investment as young women can be very tricky. And then most importantly, for young women out there, when I was doing the research with the youth think tank, one of the things that we found is that the dissemination of information that are non-specifically, that are targeting young women, but are not designed, or the channels used do not actually reach the young women, you know, because we try to put out, you know, funding opportunities or scholarships in agriculture or whatever it is on social media or on these big channels. But if we know that most of the people involved in agriculture are rural young women in rural areas, how sure are we that they have access to internet? Are we using the right channels to make sure that they get the opportunities? Because I was lucky. I got this opportunity because after my lower high school, I got a MasterCard scholarship and got into a very big prestigious school. So of course I had access to this information. But this does not apply to all young women that are in the rural area of Uganda that study in a government-aided situation, or that study in what we call universal secondary education schools. They don't have access to this information. So one of the biggest barriers to this is that the dissemination of information doesn't come in the right channels. And there are so many opportunities. I've seen them for young women, but are they in the right channels? Can they reach the young women that we want them to reach to? And then the other thing is, the other barrier that I find is being threatened. You know, we are in a sector where we already have a lot of competition from older, you know, I would say older people that have more experience. And most of them, or some of them, are not forthcoming. I know that I don't know as much as I do in agriculture, or I still need to learn. No one knows that much. I still need to learn as a young woman starting up an agri business. But then for me to reach out to someone who has had experience in this sector, and for this person to say, well, I just don't see it. I don't see that you can do that. That is hurting. That is damaging on all levels for young women out there. So I think that the barriers that we need to break and the things that have supported me is I have great mentors. I've always gotten to points where I'm like, okay, now this is it. I don't think I can do anymore. And then I've gone back to my mentors and they've supported me. They've reminded me why I started. They've reminded me of my passion and the goals I've set, and how this, you know, is something that I want to do not only for myself, but for all the young girls out there that have dreams that they feel like they can realize. Thank you.
Sorry, I had trouble finding my video and unmute button because I was taken in by all of your comments. We have a couple more minutes in this block. I wonder, Awa or Sandra, all of you have commented around the role of mentors and others who have been with you or supported you. I wonder if you can comment a little. Do you find that those are formal mentorship opportunities, or are you seeking those out and it's much more informal? Who'd like to take that?
I can go first.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, it's mostly been informal mentorship situations. And I think one thing many young people don't realize early on is that you need to be willing to put yourself out there and reach out to people, because people are willing to talk to you when you reach out to them. I mean, it doesn't always work all the time. Like maybe out of 10 emails you send, one person will get back to you, but that's still a win. So it's that mentality of being willing to reaching out to people whose work you see and you're interested in, and you're more interested in them guiding you and imparting upon you the path they've gone through you, and also sharing your ideas, like having a sounding board to make sure that you're on the right track. So I've mostly had informal mentorship situations, and sometimes they just happen. Like I may have a conversation with someone and I find them very inspiring and very helpful, and I ask them if I can keep in touch and reach out later on. But I do know that there are also some formal mentorship setups that exist. Like for instance, the American Association of Applied Economics has a formal mentorship process set up for young women agricultural economists, and helping them through the publication process and also navigate the academic track. But I'm not aware of one that's set up for those specifically interested in the policy sector. So I think both do exist and both have value, as long as the connection between both people works, because that's really important too, because you need to be able to connect freely and speak freely without barriers.
I may say I've received both formal and informal mentorship. The formal one has basically been in the lines of my career, personal career development, and of course institutional development of careers. It's an opportunity that they give us, the ladies, more often to pursue and grow our careers in the lines that we desire. I've received much more mentorship from my work supervisors. They have trained me on what to do, and they still do. But I also feel the on-the-job training works out. It pushes you into the challenges of agriculture out there, and definitely you just have to grow within them or even outgrow them to beat the barriers in those lines of profession. I've seen fellow leaders in the banking sector, and the inspiration that I get from them is also an added advantage for me to grow more and more into the agriculture career. And the political leadership, I may say, is another inspiration for me. I look so much to the former agriculture minister in Uganda, in the Ugandan parliament. She was a strong woman out there. She is no longer a minister, but she has still pursued the desire and the passion to help young women in agriculture. I feel she's doing a tremendous work tirelessly. I look up to people of the kind beyond my professional cycles. That's how I've managed to receive mentorship. I don't want to think that it comes to us every time we need it. No, sometimes we need to press on and look for the mentorship ourselves to see us grow in these careers. Thank you.
So what I think I'll do now is we had a fourth panelist who I see is actually on our Zoom, but she sent us a video because her connectivity last week was a little rough, and so we weren't sure it was gonna work out. The video comes from, and apologies as I try and get her name right, Chamaka Queen Amazundiro Umwendunukwe. Hopefully later she'll give me the thumbs up that I did that okay. And she sent us a short video, which I'll play now, and then we'll move into the last of our themes. So hopefully I will be able to figure out how to do this with sound, and you'll be able to enjoy this video from Queen.
Hey, good evening. I was asked to make a short clip video. Okay, let's go there. I'm a Mazundiro Queen. Yes, by name, by citizen, I'm a Nigerian, and by tribe, I'm Igbo. Yes, I'm Igbo. Okay, I'm the CEO and founder of Agro Flavor Farms. What we practice or what we champion more is an organic agriculture. We ensure the practice, we ensure the implementation, we ensure the approach. Not just us, we also drive initiative to make sure that the youth, the women, they see a way to change their narrative towards how they use the land and how they produce, thereby ensuring sustainable food production. So we advocate for climate change, we advocate for SDG 2, we advocate for SDG 12 and 13. So majorly for me, what leadership by definition is, in my own simplest term, without any emotional compromise, I will say that leadership has to do with the ability to build followers, the ability to be trusted, the ability to lead, the ability to deplete some legitimate characteristics, like in character, like in responsibility, like in strength, like in relevancy, showing your manpower when it's needed. So I believe leadership has to do with ability to stand and stand right. So there's so many people, so many women I look at to when it comes to leadership role, like the role model, the kind of mentors. I won't use the word mentor, but I will use the word role model. People like Agnes Alibata, maybe you might know her. Yes, she's the founder of Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, and currently now she's the UN Secretary General Specialist Envoy for the Food System Summit 2020-2021. So she advocates for agriculture so immensely. Why I'm actually driven by her famous and by her effort is that she's ensuring a prosperous and a peaceful Africa through sustainable agricultural growth, improving productivity and livelihood of millions of families across Africa. Like, she's trying to connect dots between farmers who are feeling the soil, who are feeling the sun, who are feeling the climate, with entrepreneurship kind of levels. I don't know how to put it, but she's good. And looking at people like that, I believe that I will get there and I will do better. So now, when it comes to how leadership can help women in agriculture, is so enormous, because you see that women, they do more of the work, they do more of the duty, they do more of the action there, but at the end of the day, their voices are less heard. So I believe this should be changed. And why is this so? Is that there's no much, or let's say there's minimal number of women in the leadership position, and there's also a very big disproportionate mismatch between decision making and the voices of the rural women. So I believe all these gaps should know how to be closed, and for this to be closed, women should be given chance. Their voices should be heard. Like they should take part in the decision making exercise. I believe with this, problems concerning gender inequality in agriculture will be solved. Then I believe I'm a woman leader, yes, because for me to have used my potential and personal traits in my best reflective way to have bring up an idea that has to do with science-based agriculture, which I said earlier, organic agriculture, to start solving issues in my local community. Even though I'm starting local, I believe I will go global, and it will be so pretty soon. So that is how it is. So for now, let me stop here. See you on the inside. Thank you. Bye.
All right. What a nice place for us to be in, because we were going to ask what next for you. And I think Queen knew exactly how to take advantage of her absence by presencing herself through the video. And so it's my pleasure to take the panelists to the next and final theme before we go into questions. And the question, or the brief questions around this, are really what next for you? Young women in Africa are said to be running away from agriculture. Is that true? And if it is, what would you tell them? You know, ask them back. It's working for you. What would you tell them to see the potential in agriculture? And what would you tell the whole lot of us on this forum and out there? What would you say to policymakers? And I think this is also a great place to read out the question of Joanne, which is very much aligned to this theme. And she says, this is such an excellent session. Thanks to the working group chairs for hosting. One question I have is, what these women still feel is the most needed, to help propel professionalism in agriculture for them and generally? Is it funding? Is it tech transfer? Is it mentoring? Is it financing? Is it research? And she says, thank you so much to these women for sharing their stories and educating us. I thought I should just honor Joanne's question because it's very much aligned to the theme. And so please feel free to reflect upon that question as you also go, as you sort of make your final call to fellow young women and the policymakers. I'll ask now Maria perhaps to go first, then Awa, and then Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For me, if I'm speaking as Maria, what I need right now, investment, please. Someone please come and invest. But I know that more than the funding, what most young women need, what most entrepreneurs or young women that are starting careers in agriculture need, is mentoring. I got that because I was lucky to go to a very unique university that has a very unique curriculum that not only teaches me about the educational aspect, but also integrates into business management, professionalism, how to deal with people. But then most young women don't have that. So besides funding and making sure that information reaches young women, I think they need mentoring and support. And I think just asked about what's next, how my career fits into my life aspirations, I think. So for me, I'm not only going to be a business owner, but I'm also working on my career as a social innovator and entrepreneur that is going to be teaching young people how to scout informal businesses, how to identify opportunities and take advantage of them. I've been lucky to do I wrote my first training manual with Food for the Hungry, and it is to help young people in communities that have not had an education or that have dropped out of school to be able to use resources around them to scout informal businesses and be able to take advantage of literally all opportunities around them. And moving forward for my business, I hope we do get people that respect young women doing business that come to invest in our company, and we continue to grow and to also continue growing as a person. But for most young women out there, what they basically need, as I said, is mentorship and funding and a nudge into the right direction. If a young woman is out there and is listening to this, what I would tell them is be consistent. Be consistent about your dreams. It doesn't matter what you are going through right now. I've probably not lived through your reality, and I probably never will. But be consistent with your goals, with yourself. Be disciplined, be consistent, and have integrity. People cannot fight that when you're working as a young woman. Be disciplined, be consistent, and have integrity. Work with people and push yourself, as I was said earlier. Push yourself, reach out. If people don't respond, that's okay. Keep reaching out. Be consistent and keep going for what you want. That is the fight that we are in right now. And to policymakers, one of the biggest problems around helping young women is that we go and educate them about you should be consistent, you should go for your dreams, but we don't look at the society that is built around them. In this aspect, I mean that we go and in a family of like 5 people, we educate a young woman, but this person still has 4 other people that are influencing her decisions. So we need to educate those as well. Private institutions, governments, or non-government organizations that are designing programs for young women, you have to consider that most young women are found in settings where they are answerable to husbands or brothers or fathers. And these are people that contribute to what they choose to do. So as much as we want to design programs for these young women, let us also be very mindful of the people that influence their choices and their decisions and educate them as well. Why propelling young women is very important, because if we keep educating young women, they're still going to be confined in a system where only 5%, actually this is real statistics, only 15% of women in most of Africa own land, you know. So we are still going to be kept in that cycle. So let's not only educate young women and create opportunities for them, but then let's also make sure that the society around them is well educated to know that young women have the potential and they have the ability and they can propel this agricultural sector forward. I think I'm speaking too much. I'll give the word to Sandra, I think.
Okay, thank you, Mariam. I don't differ much from her view on that theme. I also still believe that in many developing countries, such as Uganda, where I am, often women have limited the ability to make strategic decisions. And why this is so is because they are less informed. They do not have information. I still believe that agriculture is a the women should pursue, the young women should engage in, because it is paying, it is an open ground to dig in for any person who desires to earn a living or to grow a career. Agriculture is a sector that I foresee is taking on the economy. If the young women do not get involved, then ideally they will be pushed out of the economy. If the growth of the economy is surrounding much more around agriculture. I get to know this because I feel I'm exposed right from my career, my profession. The exposure that I get gives me information to know that actually is a hanging fruit for many people out there, including the young women. So the women out there, I still urge them to pursue agriculture along or across the value chain. It's quite wide. It's not only going to the garden to produce. It also involves the marketing. It also involves the trade, the transport, everything. The chain is quite long. So we can't be limited. What is limiting us is probably information. But for as long as we are able to get information in forms that are accessible and appealing to change the reality that people know about agriculture being a hard sector to penetrate through, we can give it a try. We can, much as we can. I still believe that, like Maria has said, if you put your mind into it, if you really accept that it is a business that you can do out there to earn a living, to succeed as a young woman in life, then it's worth giving a try. Let's give it a try. Let's accept mentorship and let's seek information. Where institutions and governments are not availing information, we can still try to look it out. But still, I urge the institutions, the governments to give it priority, because it's the way to go now. The rudimentary methods may not apply. They are what cause us to think that agriculture is actually not a good venture for anyone else. But with those rudimentary methods transformed into modern, then agriculture can be given a smart position. When information barrier is also given a try, if it's given an eye, then agriculture's face is really going to change in the developing countries, especially in Africa. So I really believe there is potential in agriculture. I don't see it taking a slow move. I really see it on quite a high pace, and if anyone does not pick interest and pursue it, ideally you'll be left out of the economy. It's the information I have for the young ladies out there. The fears that they have should be put aside. We should take away the common norm, the inferiority complex, by reflecting on the examples that we have. The women in business, the young women in leadership, those should be influence for us to actually get corners and stand out as young women to grow careers and succeed in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria and Sandra. You've shared so much wisdom. I was just listening. I'm like, wow, okay. So for me, what I have to add is that both Sandra and Maria had really great points, and I want to pick on one particular thing that Maria mentioned. She said that she was involved in a youth-led research, and during that research, she got to talk to young people and hear directly from them about their challenges. And when we think about the current state of the evidence, there is a lot that tells us that on average, women tend to have lower access to productive inputs like fertilizers, improved seeds, agricultural technologies, finance compared to their male peers. So there is quite a bit of evidence out there. So now maybe what needs to be done is to work on the uptake of that evidence. And I see that young African researchers have a role to play in that. Like, let's take the evidence, let's bring it to the policymakers, the decision makers, the donors, and tell them this is what we see. This is what the evidence is telling us about what works in our setting. How can you help us make it happen? Because one thing is to produce the evidence, the research, but another thing is to make it actionable. And I think that is what will help us get that thing, that idea of gender transformative action. But I just learned that term from Joyce. If we want to address social norms and structural barriers that are currently preventing women from achieving their potential, we need to be able to make the evidence actionable. And I also want to touch on another point that has to do with the fact that young Africans are leaving agriculture, the African farmers are getting older, but that might not actually be the case in all the countries. Like, there is a recent research that was published, and it's based on data in Rwanda, Ghana, Uganda, Zambia, Nigeria, and other countries. And it shows that on average, African farmers are between 32 and 39 years old. So what this shows is that we don't have an aging farming population. Like, what we need to be thinking about is ways to make it profitable for them to be more attracted by it, so that they can derive a sustainable source of livelihood. And to Joanne's question earlier, the one that Joyce repeated, like what is needed to support young women. In ag research, for instance, I'm going to speak about ag research. I think mentorship is definitely key. Like anyone interested in that field should reach out to people who are established researchers in that field or current students to find out more about it and learn about the implications, the career implications, as well as the rigor it requires. And these mentors are also important to keep you grounded when all the equations and formulas start going over your head, like to remind you why you joined that field in the first place. And I also hate to say this, but it's important to brush up on your math skills for any degree in applied economics or agricultural economics, as it's called sometimes. And believe me, after the first introductory courses, the method courses, things do get better and you get involved in interesting projects and you actually get to work on projects that have a potential to be used by policymakers to make action so that it's not all abstract. And these were the last point I had from my end. So I'm going to pass it on to the moderators.
Great, thank you so much. I'll just let you all know Joyce got last minute notice. She had to leave for a meeting, an important meeting at the top of the hour. So she dropped off, and so I'll take us through to the end of today's session. We're at a point where we're open to questions from audience. Those of you who have been listening in, please drop them in via the chat. I'll give you a moment to do that. And as we're doing that, we probably have about 10 minutes, I think, for Q&A. Is that right? Yeah. And I think one question that I have that we had discussed with Awa and Sandra and Maria last week was this idea that in Africa, young people are running away from agriculture. And I wonder if, as people are thinking about questions that they'd like to ask you, could you comment on that? Are young people running away from agriculture? Is that true? Why don't we start with you, Awa, and then you can choose who to pass the baton to.
Sure. So I can only speak from looking at what the literature has been producing recently. And it doesn't seem like young people are running away from agriculture. So if you think about the demographic pyramid of Africa and even life expectancy, it's not as long as in the global north. So there are very few farmers who are above the 66 years old threshold. So what this means is that the majority of people who are actively involved in farming activities tend to be in the 30 to 40 years age group. And that makes sense when you think about the demographic distribution you're looking at. But one thing that is sure is that farming activities are seasonal. They tend to be part-time activities, and many of us know that many African youth tend to be involved in multiple sources of livelihoods at once. So that's what is happening right now. Even if they're involved in farming activities, they also have something else going on the side. It could be non-farm enterprises not related to agriculture at all. So in general, I think, and based on what the literature is saying, is that young people are still very much involved in agricultural activities, like even if it's on a part-time basis, and what they're looking for are ways to make it profitable, so maybe it can become their full-time activities. And these are the type of things we need to keep thinking about. And let me say, Sandra, I'll pass on the baton to Sandra. it's, maybe Maria, you can go next.
I don't know what happened to Sandra. I hope she connects again. So I don't think it's entirely true. I think that was true a few years before, but then we have a new era of agri-tech where very many young people that I personally know and I don't know are actively finding solutions for agriculture enterprises along the value chain. So I don't think it's entirely true that young people are running away from agriculture, but then I think it's true that according to the research due by Youth Think Tank, most young people are more interested in off-farm activities, commercialization, value addition. That is where their interest is. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are running away from agriculture. In this context, for me, I feel like young people are finding their passion in technology or financing or whatever other off-farm activities are there in agriculture, and some are even more interested in the science aspect of agriculture. We talk of, genetics and what have you, and I think that is a good thing. So instead of saying young people are running away from agriculture, I think people should start saying that young people are diversifying in agriculture. I think people should start saying, I'm very sorry for this, you're getting background. I think young people should start saying that, people should start saying that young people are diversifying in agriculture, because what we see right now is a trend of young people involving in agriculture technologies, in sciences, and all of them are giving solutions that make agriculture better. So I think that is the new reality. That may have been what was happening before, but I don't think it's a reality now.
Thank you. And let me see, there is a question specifically for Sandra. If she, I see she's still on the line, but Sandra, if you're there, Felix asks, being actively involved in agri-finance, how have you overcome the barriers of access to finance by women and generally youth? Which kind of guarantees have you seen to be more targeted and successful when applied? I'll give you, let's see, I think you look like you're still there, so let's see. All right, we'll come back to her if she comes online again. Howard Kavisi says women should be encouraged to take up agricultural courses and competence-based agricultural courses from youth, hands-on skills and research in agriculture fields. How can this be increased to significant levels? Any assurance for their mentorship training on diverse agricultural activities and opportunities in agriculture? Urban farming for women who have no access to vast resources, how would this be encouraged to higher levels? Anyone want to answer Harwood's question? How can we increase the take-up by women of agricultural courses and competence-based agricultural courses? Go ahead, Awa.
I'll try to share some thoughts on this. So I think unlike the other sciences, hard sciences, rather like math and physics, the STEM fields, it doesn't seem like women are necessarily running away from agriculture, but both Sandra and Maria said a few things that might point to the reason why maybe women are not engaging as much in these courses. The fact that if you grew up in a rural setting and you're used to the drudgery of farming, you might not want to go into that field. So I think maybe one way to encourage this is to show these women role models like Maria and Sandra, who are thriving in the sector and making a good living out of it. So I think it's that idea of trying to help people project themselves beyond their current state.
Maria, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, so if I understood the question well, I've been in the chat trying to read the question, and if I got it well, it's about how can we assure that young women have agriculture training. And I mean, this is going to greatly depend on where they're located, the kind of organizations working in this area. And first of all, I think the first thing we have to do is to teach young women to take the initiative, you know, to go out of their way to look for this kind of training. And I know that someone would argue, but they are not available everywhere. I know that, and I'm saying in case they are available, we teach them to look out for these trainings, to actively want to learn. And then I think this person also put a question about urban farming for women who have no access to vast resources. How would this be encouraged to significant levels? I think with urban farming, this is a trend that is going on. And I know that there are so many people out there that have made videos, you know, simple videos of how you can make DIYs of like plastic bottles or, you know, like old things and recycle them and be able to get, you know, a small urban garden. So I think, as I said, it's the initiative to want to learn for the young women, to look for these materials. As I said, it also depends on where these women are located. Are they rural women? Are they women in urban centers? Do they have access to internet? Can they look for these videos online? Can they follow through? Can they want to learn? I think that is how we can push them, by telling them, okay, there are options, but you need to also take the initiative to want to learn.
Great. We got an email saying Sandra is having technical difficulties. Let me see real quick if she's back online. Okay, perhaps not. So we're pretty much at the end of our Q&A. I would like to invite Maria and Awa, and if Sandra can hear us, to share one last thought that you have for young women who are considering pursuing agriculture or a career in agriculture. So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that. One of the things we really wanted to do with this session was to create as much space as possible for Maria, Awa, and Sandra to share their experiences, and I hope that we've achieved that. I'm gonna close out now and say thank you to them for being for taking the time to share this space with us and their ideas, and thank you to the working groups for creating this event. And now I'm going to pass it back to Maria and Awa for you to have the final words on, you know, what advice would you give to young women? And then when they're wrapped up, I think, let's see, it looks like then Sabrina and Paul will formally close us out.
Okay, I can start.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, what I want to say to anyone interested in pursuing a degree in agricultural economics or applied research with the idea of using it to inform policy decision making at the country level among policymakers is to do your research, find out what different programs are doing, find out if they are doing research you are interested in pursuing, because the reality is that when you start your academic journey, oftentimes you don't have a good idea of what you really are interested in, but it's always good to know what specific departments are working on and if it's somehow aligned to what you're interested in. And don't hesitate to reach out. If anyone is on this call and wants to reach out to me to talk more, please feel free to do so. I'm always available to talk to anyone and help them brainstorm ideas as they embark on this journey, and find a mentor. That's always the thing I tell people. It's very important in helping you staying anchored and grounded throughout this process. Thank you for everyone for listening and for joining.
Okay, so I guess my final words, I'm so happy this is ending. This has been a really interesting discussion. But to a young woman out there, I want to just tell you that your dreams are valid. And I may not have walked the path you've walked. I may not have experienced what you've experienced, and I have no idea what you're going through as a woman. And I wish that the world was an equal place where opportunities are easy for us, where we own land, where we are pushed easily to go for what we want. I can't assure that, but I can tell you that if you're disciplined, if you work hard, if you have integrity, and you are committed, you will get there. You just have to be consistent. Be consistent for anyone who wants to start a business or has a business as a young woman in agriculture, of course, or you have a dream to do something in agriculture. No matter how hard this seems right now, be consistent, have integrity, be disciplined, and keep standing up for what you want. Keep showing up every day, even when it doesn't make sense at all, because I know sometimes it doesn't. Even when it doesn't make sense at all for you to show up and keep doing what you have to do, please keep doing it. I'm telling you, small efforts are going to amount to something big, and you will definitely get there. Get mentors. Talk to people. I support our on this. Get mentors. You don't know everything. Be open to learn. Use all the resources you can. Reach out and try to educate yourself as much as you can. That is one thing that people will not take away from you, your education and your knowledge. Be knowledgeable so that when you start speaking to people, they find sense in what you're saying. Educate yourself and empower yourself so that you can face whatever the agriculture sector throws at you, I would say. And I wish you luck to every young woman out there in agriculture. I'm cheering you on, and I really wish you very good success and luck. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for those last closing and very inspiring words. I want to thank all of the panelists, Awa, Sandra, and Maria, as well as Queen, who sent us the video. I think a recurring theme throughout the discussion has been the importance of mentorship and role models. And I'm just so pleased that we've been able to provide this platform for these three young women who are themselves role models. And I hope you all have enjoyed as much as I have being able to hear their inspiring personal stories of how they forged their careers in agriculture, whether that be in agribusiness, agricultural research, or ag finance. As well as some of the great insights into how those of us working on economic empowerment or youth in agriculture can best support young women. I also want to thank Joyce and Christina for your skillful facilitation and all your help in planning and shaping this event, along with the other co-chairs, Christy Olenek and Matthew Bremen from the Youth and Development Workgroup, and for bringing this idea to us, and of course, Mark Castellino of the Food Security and Agriculture Workgroup. Also, I want to let you know to keep an eye out for an upcoming Food Security and Agriculture Workgroup event coming probably later in November, possibly early December. We're still settling on the date, but it'll be in that time frame. And that'll be on what makes agricultural innovation happen, where we'll have a panel sharing lessons from Israel and beyond. And I can tell you from the planning sessions we've had so far, this is going to be a really interesting event. So I hope to see you there. And now I'll just hand it back to Paul Sherman for the final word. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, Sabrina. And thank you, Maria, Awa, Sandra, for your thoughts and providing your commentary. It was really, I think, a valuable conversation. And thank you to Christina, as Sabrina said, thank you to Christina, as well as Joyce for moderating this session, along with the co-chairs, obviously, for their support in putting this together. One last thing I will say is there is a survey in the chat box. We really appreciate your feedback as we move forward in producing our further events. As Sabrina said, we have another food security and ag event in the works for later on this year, towards the end of the year. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for that as well. As I said, there are two instances of it the survey being posted in the chat box, so feel free to fill that out. We really, as I said, we would really appreciate your feedback. And with that, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you continue to stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you at a future event. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.